And we're recording, we're broadcasting live?
Yeah.
Well, welcome back, Allan.
It's great to be back.
It's great to have you back. And here we are for our second week.
Second week, day 3.
Of the Island Call-In program through the Allan Dale. You know, if you were to summarize the first week, what are your thoughts?
It was exciting, right? I mean, these things take time to grow organically, but I think that our numbers increased day over day. And of course, the weekend, more people would have tuned in to sort of catch the recording of it all. Callers were increasing day over day. In fact, they doubled on the second day. So that was fantastic. And I think that that's what it's all about, giving people that opportunity to call in and, be heard, because there's a lot of really interesting things happening around the globe and certainly right here at home. So I enjoy the fact that people, feel empowered to call in and talk these things through. We don't have necessarily all the answers or even any of the answers, but we can certainly be a conduit to get those voices out there, and I think that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, I have to say, so we did this almost as a lark. We had you in as a contributor for the Exchange podcast. We chatted quickly about doing this because we see a need for it. And in a couple of days, I can tell you I am astounded by the number of people who have viewed this, commented, and we've had a number of callers, which is kind of shocking for a couple of days. Very little investment to promote this service.
Right. But that's what it's about, right? It's sort of starting off slow and growing it. And, this is a great place to do something like this here in Prince Edward Island. People can be heard, and there's complex issues here that we need to discuss. So let's hope some callers call in today and we'll take it. But otherwise, we can start on some things that you just came from an incredible day.
Let's come back to that in a second, only because I see we're early. We're actually broadcasting here a few minutes before 12. And we know our followers are waiting till noon. I don't want them to be disappointed to miss part of this. But what I'll do is I'll remind people who are on, if there's anybody on early, the dial-in number, it is 902-500-2464. So if you are inclined, we'd like to hear from you. That's the whole purpose of this.
Yeah.
We want to hear from Islanders.
SpaceX shirt, what's the story?
Well, the story is there's an IPO coming. That's part of the story. But another part of the story would be the Artemis 2, which is just, circumnavigated the moon on its way back to Earth.
Right.
As somebody who was watching the first Apollo mission,
You're right.
I'm surprised you weren't asked to go on it, but what do you think about this recent technological?
I think it's fantastic. Back when Apollo was sort of ramped up, and to be honest with you, I never really paid much attention to space exploration, but I want to tell you, this has caught my attention for a number of reasons. It just goes to show what we're capable of.
Right.
And that to me says so much, is what we are capable of, yet we get so bogged down into the mundane conversation. And this stuff is happening all around us, and it behooves us to pay more attention to just what we're capable of as humans.
And it's the thing that's interesting, especially in this geopolitical environment, is the partnerships, the collaboration, the international connection. You mentioned it earlier. On the partnership side, like this took a couple of years to get organized, but it happened very quickly.
Yeah.
And we've got Boeing, maybe Northrop Grumman, I forget the name of the company, certainly Boeing or one of the...
Lockheed is in there.
Yeah.
Lockheed, I think Northrop Grumman's in there. I think Boeing certainly is in there. But you're right, that's an incredible collaboration between...
competitors, too, in some cases.
Well, 100% competitors, hard competitors, right? But they collaborate on projects. So here you've got NASA sort of kicking this thing up, and you've got a lot of companies involved in making this happen.
Well, and the other thing is considering again the tensions between the U.S. and Canada, or at least the perceived tensions in certain sectors, maybe it's just political, but there was continued collaboration on space exploration. 4 astronauts have been thrust into space, one of whom is Canadian.
What does that say about our partnership with the United States, right? I mean, this is one of the biggest things that the United States have done in many, many decades, and they invite us to be a part of it. A 25% partner in what they're doing. That to me really clearly speaks to the relationship we have with our neighbors and partners to the south.
So is our friction that we're experiencing today, and it's going to cause, it is causing trade reconsiderations. Whole industries have to adapt to this, but do you think it's a hiccup? Do you think we'll pass this discomfort and get back to a place where we can be collaborators and partners and good neighbors with people from the south of the U.S.?
Almost assuredly. I mean, we have no choice. They have no choice but to come back to the table and and I would argue actually we've probably never really left the table. There's been distractions and there's been disruptions and there's been heavy media reporting one way or the other, but I would argue we've probably never left the table. We're churning along in the background, making this sort of work. But I do think that the future is bright for Canada and the United States, moving forward. I really do.
Well, I think despite everything, the fact that we've been successful at propelling people into the farthest reaches of space, farther than we've ever gone before, and knock on wood, everybody returns safely, that can demonstrate the relationship that we have and will continue. I mean, there's other sectors that are also under strain, not just trade and economics, but there's some tensions with defense and cross-border collaboration, which isn't as good as it has been maybe in the past. What do we've got midterms coming up for the U.S., depending on how that goes. Do you see a thawing in the relationship, and what sector do you think will exhibit that reconnection first? Space is one where the connection was never lost. Are there other sectors?
Well, I don't think it has been lost in the defense side. That relationship will always be there. It needs to be there. We share borders. We are isolated in North America from the rest, so that relationship needs to be there. So much like space, I would argue that defense conversation has never gone away. Where else does it find it? I mean, in energy, right? We share that. So, I mean, there's many things. Auto sector, right? I mean, there might be a lot of conversation.
What's left there? We might be just manufacturing Chinese vehicles.
I don't think so. I think that there's a strong enough bond between our countries that sector will also survive this time and space that we're in right now. But I think that we've got to get through these challenging times.
They're challenging. They're turbulent. In fact, I just came from an event this morning, which was hosted by Junior Achievement and funded by the Department of Innovation. And part of the conversation was around some of these aspects and how our community thrives and what's going to happen. There's some good speakers, and we can go through that. There's a nice little agenda there. For people who are just joining us, I want to welcome you back again to the second week of the Allan Dale radio call-in program. I'm here with Allan Dale. We've kind of jointly inspired to come up with this way to connect with Islanders. Mm-hmm. And the whole goal of this is to allow you, if you're tuned in and listening, call in, give us a shout, let us know what's on your mind, what concerns you have, what issues you'd like to raise. We don't have solutions, but we do have a platform. I
just realized when I look at the Facebook Live feed there, we both look a little bit like Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys. So I don't know if that's going to change. I can't take mine off, so there you go.
Well, that's probably not a good reference.
Yeah, I don't know. Call in to the guys with the eyeglasses and be heard. Talk to me about the event you were at.
It's interesting. I don't think I've been to an event other than the Chamber of Commerce in Summerside. I do attend those, but I haven't been to a public event like this since pre-COVID.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so for me, it was interesting to come back out and see who's engaged, who's around the community. There's a big crowd. Yeah. That was encouraging.
Right.
A lot of the people that I would have expected to be there from a few years back, but lots of new emerging people as well. Right. So I'd say these are younger leaders or aspiring entrepreneurs or business persons that have come out to participate. And the focus of this is it's a PI Business Summit, second annual.
Okay.
And the goal was to bring people together to talk about issues and see if there's solutions that we can come up with collectively. And they did bring a couple of good speakers in. They had breakout sessions, but the atmosphere was positive.
Okay.
And the presentations were good.
Good. Yeah, I mean, 3 big panels, obviously 3 thematic lines of discussion, right? Workforce challenges being one. I'd love to dive into that. Technology and AI. I love it. I'm embracing it. I'm not sure everybody is.
Well, but if you're not, you're already behind.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, there's the expanding new markets. And, of course, that's sort of beyond our traditional partnerships that we talked about earlier. But why don't we dive into this whole conversation around workforce challenges. Where do you see them? You're in the business. You're an HR sort of guy. And where do you see the workforce challenges?
Well, I don't think I can separate workforce challenge from AI.
Okay.
Because I think whether you like it or not, those two are synchronized. And if you look at just strictly workforce, we can look at the demographics, we can look at the training that we have through post-secondary and apprenticeship programs. Are we training the right people to support our economy and our workforce? And that's a question we can debate. I do have to keep coming back to the impact of AI. And I know you're an avid user of AI, have been for many years probably, certainly one of the earliest people who've used it professionally in your tools. What do you see as the opportunities for the tools of AI that we might not be using today? We'll come back to the workforce piece, but you've got perspective on this.
Yeah, I find for me, AI it's a journey. I'm constantly learning AI. It's almost, I would argue, it's its own language. It's its own way to sort of communicate and the like. And I find that too many people are not engaged in the conversation. This is what I feel like to be the largest challenge. And my sort of advice to people is that just start the process, start engaging with the tools that you have in front of you. I mean, there's all kinds of tools out there today, and everything is touched by AI.
No question.
Your eyeglasses are touched by AI.
Yep.
Everything is touched by AI, and many people are using it at a very rudimentary level.
It's like Google.
Yeah. But the people that are engaging with it at a very rudimentary level are finding that the responses and the sort of the output of it is not good enough for them, right? And then they assume that AI
doesn't do what
they need them to do. But there's a whole lot of investment that you need to put into it. We all need to put into it to make it work best for you. And this is my challenge when I talk to people. They're not in, and I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about the barber now. I'm talking about people that are should be really embracing this technology. That's the part that I find. I'm not saying that the barber shouldn't be using AI. In fact, the barber should be using AI. It would certainly help their whole marketing and everything, right? But my point is that people that really should be diving into AI are not diving into it.
So are they frightened of it? Do they see it as are they fearful of the power of the technology? Are they just not understanding the capabilities? Do they not? I mean, everybody's got access to these tools because, they're commonly available. They're free. I mean, you can get a lot of compute power for these free services. Why are people not diving into this?
It's like anything, in my opinion. It's like, everybody wants to play guitar, you want to learn how to play the piano.
Speaking the language.
Not everybody can be a drummer, I get that, but, anybody can be a guitar player. But anyway, so the people want to do these things, but they don't want to put the time in, right? And AI is that to me. It is, you need to put the time into it to learn it. And once you do, it just really starts working for you as opposed to you working for it.
Yeah. Well, so here's one of the things that I've noticed. And we use it. In fact, this whole broadcast, we optimize everything with AI.
Mm-hmm.
So we're producing, editing, creating, marketing, really everything that we have done here on the Island do is how do you optimize the services with AI? So can we produce multiple programs with less touch, less people? Which is the risk of AI and certainly what it's going to do to the workforce. And we'll come back to that. But really understanding how to communicate and connect to it. And, can you be a prompt pilot? So can you write your prompts in a way that gives you robust information? So a few things, like internally we use it for vibe coding. We can create applications on the fly where previously we might have needed several developers.
Right.
And I don't think people are fully awakened to the opportunities that's presented right in front of us.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, that we're sort of heavily engaged in the AI. But one thing I will say to people, and maybe this is where I'm not really quite caught up to it yet, but I really do think you need a perspective. You need human perspective in the conversation. The AI tools will only help you so much. They can search and research and do deep data dives and all of that, but they lack this perspective, right? Two people sitting in a room sharing ideas with one another. This is important stuff. I do a lot of AI in the video production side, and
much more robustly because you've been doing it much longer. You know how to use the tools.
A long time, but what we're finding that it's not so much in the actual video editing and production. While AI comes in there, it's not so much in that we find the power of it. We find the power of it in dissecting or sort of interrogating the conversations. But I always go back to, there's nothing to interrogate unless you have the conversation. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So
we have to start.
We have to start. This is what I talk about, feeding the beast, if you will.
And it learns, it's self-learning. So the more you integrate or interact with it, the better it gets at anticipating what your needs are.
I'm so glad that you said that it's self-learning. And that my advice to so many people when it comes to AI is pick a program, pick a platform, and stick with it. And allow it to learn you as much as you learn it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And people say, oh, is this going to survive? Is that going to survive? Is Perplexity going to be here next week? Is Google still going to be around? Right? And people are sort of hedging their bets. My point, just start. Just get going and get going on one.
So I'm a little bit more agnostic, and I do use multiple platforms, but you're right. It doesn't intimately learn what I require. For certain features, I stick to one platform.
Yeah.
And we use Gemini a lot internally as well. As a firm, everybody uses it. But there's other platforms, they're all good, and they all are a little bit specialized depending on what your needs are.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'll often use, I'm purely a Gemini guy. I love Gemini. I'm really locked into that. But there are times when if I'm doing a road trip to Halifax or something, I'll put on Perplexity on my radio, and I'll just start asking a question. If I want to learn about something, then I will just start interrogating, and 3.5 hours later, I've got all the knowledge I need about that particular topic, or at least I've got enough to
sort of just interrogate it as you're driving.
I just start questioning it, and I go back and forth, and I keep the conversation going. So it could be as simple as, tell me all about sort of the Anna Green Gables series, right? And it'll start, and then I would say, I want to dive deeper into Gilbert. Tell me more about Gilbert's backstory. And I'll just continue diving. Or somebody might say, you got to read this great, book I just read. And so I'll start diving deep into that and understand the whole thing. And Perplexity just won't stop answering the questions, right? And I'm diving deep into a topic or a subject, and I often do that if I'm on a long drive.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's an educational tool as well. In this case, it's
sure. Yeah. It's just another way to gain information, right? And it's sort of on demand, so it's like a podcast on steroids, right? I can just ask the questions I want to ask it. Yeah.
Just to remind people again, if you're tuning in for the first time, this is a live, interactive communication platform where you can have your say. As an islander, you get something you want to communicate. A couple of ways you can reach us. We're broadcast on Facebook Live. If you're watching there, please put a note in the comments. We're trying to monitor that on a couple of different platforms. You'll see me being distracted. But feel free to post a question or an observation or a comment. And if you want to call, we'd love to have you on the program. So don't be shy. The number is 902-500-2464. And we've had a number of people call in, a range of issues and concerns. Usually, Alan, what we talked about these broadcasts, we started at a high level. And we're talking about the Artemis II journey around the moon.
Couldn't get higher than that.
Well, that's as high as you can get today.
Yeah.
But we bring it down and we get more connected to the issues that are affecting islanders. Last week it was affordability in healthcare and things that everybody has a comment on. So if you want to steer the conversation, make a comment, give us a call, and we'll adapt to whatever's
100%. Yeah.
on your mind.
100%. And a lot of the issues are right here at home, and we're happy to sort of talk about them. And hopefully we'll get some of our political leaders to call in and sort of get their voices heard, and we can start asking them some questions on behalf of the audience. back to this, I want to talk about
just
the
incidentally, Robert Mitchell was at this event.
Okay.
And Robert is on a podcast being released this Thursday.
Yeah.
I should have asked him to call in.
Well, there you go. He might be hearing this now and call in. And so Robert is, of course, leader of the
Second party, the opposition, leader of the Liberals. I guess his loyalty, His Majesty's loyal opposition.
Yeah.
And
but you have to have a seat, right?
you don't have to have a seat to be the leader.
No, but I mean, he still does
He
not.
needs to get one.
Right. So that must be complicated for him to sort of.
Well, is it a complication or a benefit? I guess that's a question, and it's something that he and his party are working through. But as a leader not in the House, they're not distracted by the noise and the theater that goes on in question period. And it's not just question period, it's a function where bills are passed and debated and ascended to Lieutenant Governor. But although he's observing it, he doesn't need to be in there.
Right.
He can be building the party, preparing for a by-election, connecting with Islanders, also an imperative role of all leaders and difficult to do when you're distracted. This may be one of the longer sittings that we have gone through, as suggested by the governing party, the Conservatives, Progressive Conservatives. But I would think that there's so many issues on the table today that it should be a long session. There's lots of things to review. So, yeah. And you can tune into Robert Mitchell's Exchange broadcast on the Exchange platform, which will be dropped on Thursday at noontime.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I ran into Robert on his way out of the Exchange and had a great conversation. He certainly seems to be engaged, listening. He's no stranger to politics. He's been away from it for a little bit, but he's no stranger to the conversation.
So on the podcast, I said you're like a prisoner who's escaped. He got loose and he came back. Right. So maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah, well, sometimes people say it's hard to sort of step away once you're bitten by that. Right?
And there's experience too that needs to be led. Now, we've also had, we'll come back to that in a minute, but certainly we're open to any political persons or anybody who'd like to come in and sit beside us and join us. Take some calls, engage with Islanders. So we'll throw that out to anybody from any sector.
This is the place. For sure.
Sorry, I digressed and distracted your train of thought.
No problem at all. So, workforce challenges, that's where I wanted to get to, but you brought me over to AI, and which I'm happy to have that conversation with. What are, one of the things that people talk about that, quite frankly, when I started my professional career was never really a thing, and that is my expectations of what work would be like, right? I went to work and that was it. Put your head down and you did what you had to do. Now, granted, mine was a fairly regimented and
structured.
It was a structured life, but that is a new sort of thing that has emerged over time. A healthy thing, I would argue, that both sides of the equation need to be heard. Was that is that a big concern for you? People's expectations of work?
Well, I think there's changing expectations based on demographics, and you see that with younger people. So where you entered a professional career that had structure and regiment and focus and achievement, acceleration, career progression, those are still available in most organizations, but the individual is a generalization, but certainly it's different today for younger people who don't have the same long-term expectations from their employment. And maybe we've all lost our ability to stay focused because of our compulsion to be on devices. But I think it happened even before we were all consumed with social media and the speed of tweets and that kind of rapid engagement. People want more from work life. And post-COVID, the commitment is to having more experience, to traveling, to doing more with the time that we have here as opposed to being a slave to a grind. So difficult for employers, and like in your vocation, your past employment, and people may stay because there's a benefit to engage and you can actually retire early with a pension. But most businesses, I think, struggle with even medium-term engagement because people rotate. And that's a challenge for stability in the workforce, for continuity, for growth planning. Businesses are affected with that workforce flexibilities that have emerged.
Yeah, it becomes very hard for an employer to retain staff, for sure. But yet, the federal government, I mean, they seem to be able to retain people no problem, but I'm not sure that they put as much effort into sort of those softer things to keep people there. It's more of a golden handcuffs things where there's a pension at the end and good benefits, right?
Yeah. It'd be interesting to hear some people if they want to call in and give perspective. It is certainly a desirable employer, and PEI is getting more difficult to get in. A big opportunity with the federal service is the wage disparity, and what you might get in the private sector or even in the provincial government public sector is very different than what you might achieve at the federal sort of pay scale levels. So it's desirable, you're right, there are incentives and bonuses and pensions and reasons to stay, including the healthcare. But it'd be an interesting analysis to see the younger people.
Right.
Can they progress the organization? Do they stay?
Right.
Can they stay in an era of austerity and compressing budgets? Will the opportunities be there for young people or even those engaged there today?
Or do they create their own opportunity? You see that more and more now, right? People just say, okay, well, there's nothing there for me. I'm going to create it for myself. You see that more often?
Not everybody's drawn to that. There's a lot of risk to it. I think those that have the aptitude to do their own thing, even if they try and fail, it's a great thing to do, especially if you're younger. I think many people are just looking for security and stability and assurance. I don't know if the erratic, environment of entrepreneurship, for instance, is for everyone. Yeah.
That try and fail thing, do you think that there's an appetite for that? I love that. Personally, I love that. I love, like, every time.
Do you see, maybe I'm misinterpreting people's vocation, but do you think people are universally, I think we'd have more innovation if people were drawn toward that. I don't think they are. I think they want security.
I see a much, in many respects, I see society in our normal structure. We try to remove risk from as much things as we can. And risk is often seen as, or failure is often seen as a very bad thing, right? And so real true entrepreneurs see it differently. They understand that they need to have that failure in order to grow. I'm starting to see sort of that, notwithstanding the societal norm to sort of take that risk out of the system and through university and higher than masters and PhD. They just de-risk everything, right? But I'm starting to see now that younger people seem to want to try things. Maybe I want to give this YouTube thing a try and get my name out there. And I think younger people are starting to understand that now is the time to try it, because there will come a point in your life where you can't take too much risk, right?
Sure, If you get families and you're just not conditioned to take that risk. I hope you're right, because I think it's important that people do try and fail, and I think we're in an environment where young people don't often get the opportunity to fail.
Right.
I think there's lots of helicoptering that occurs, and everybody gets a merit badge as opposed to participate. Like, everybody's got to be succeed at whatever that is, and whether it's in sports, they change the denotation of the category that you're in to soften the blow if you're not in the top tier. I just think we've lost our resilience to take criticism and not succeed.
Right. So we have some technical issues here now with what's going on. Apparently we're not recording, but that's, where are we recording?
I don't know.
There we go. Anyway, I'm excited about
the technical team.
I'm excited about what I see and what I'm hearing, and it's sort of that next generation. It's funny that you talk about, this expectation of not wanting this sort of full-time job and sort of that path that maybe our parents followed, and in many respects even what we followed. Yeah, sort of what we called a career, right? Which was sort of very down one path. I find that as time goes on, you reach the other end of that spectrum. So you might not have that desire when you're young, and then you eventually work yourself into that. And then as you come out the other end, like, I don't want that anymore. I don't want something to say. I want my mind racing in a number of different directions and being involved in a number of different conversations, right? Are you the same?
Well, I am, but I also have failed more than most people that have tried things. So failure for me is pretty common. This podcast could clearly be a failure, but to that point, the engagement has been shocking.
Right.
I think we're onto something meaningful, and we'll try to find a way to continue it.
But you come from a family of entrepreneurs, right? I mean,
It's a little bit more ingrained, I think. We've
Right.
got family members who are willing to try things and have been successful.
talk to me about that. What was that like at the kitchen table for you guys as kids when sort of you talked about work and things like that? Was entrepreneurship front and center, or was it just
It's kind of
passively
ingrained.
happening?
Yeah, I think it's a passive. There's always support to try things for sure.
Was there?
I think everyone in our household, but primarily my younger brother and myself, we were more conditioned to try things and encouraged and supported for sure by parents. Many things, of course, don't work out. Some do. And, I think it gave us resilience to not be bruised too badly when things fail, not to sort of retreat. And, I do look at it as you described it. It's an education.
Yeah.
And education costs money. Sometimes it costs a lot of money if you make a bad financial error in business. The key is to try again and build on the resilience of the failure. Don't repeat the mistakes because they are repeatable and observable and avoidable. But just not be disheartened to try something else. In my case, I've adapted to all kinds of different environments and not really good at any of them, but willing to try just about anything in the pursuit of, and it's not even necessarily financial, it's the reward of being successful in some little vein.
Yeah.
The financial stuff probably comes if you can do well or build a good team around you, but it's the challenge.
Yeah, oftentimes entrepreneurs, and I consider myself an entrepreneur, and I'm not in any stretch
But you've done a lot of different things.
Yeah, I have done many things, but I find that sort of entrepreneurs, they look at money even differently. It's just sort of that's not the true measurement of success. I think it's more of a feeling you get when things are happening and things are moving in the right direction.
Are you the same?
I'm exactly the same. Money to me it's a byproduct of it all, and it's a tool that you need to make things like this work. I get that, but it's not that's not the measurement of success for me. It's a different thing. Like I would rather see the phone lines lit up and real conversations happening more than money flying in from sponsors and things like that. That would only fuel a larger sort of program. That's all, right?
Well, so to that point, if you're
if you are a sponsor,
if you reach out, we will give you eyeballs, and I think you'll be impressed with the eyeballs that we can provide. If you do want to dial in, again, send your comments in through Facebook Live or watching that, or call us 902-500-2464. But back to this feeling of being an entrepreneur, the achievement of success. The richest person in the world, which many people don't like, Elon Musk, he doesn't own a home.
Right.
He's not motivated by money. He doesn't mind making decisions that might adversely affect his finances, but he's driven by another purpose. It's to create and achieve and succeed. And I think that's what entrepreneurs want.
And then I'm always fascinated when you meet an entrepreneur and somebody who's been financially incredibly successful, and then they do it all again. That's the part that I like the most.
And risk it all again.
And risk it all again, right? I've heard so many times from incredibly wealthy people, and
this is through the Gale Force.
Yeah, this is through Gale Force. The amount of times people say, we double down again, right? They put everything into another pursuit, and it wasn't about the money. The money just gave them the ability to go in another direction.
And if they fail, they do it again.
And they do it again.
Right.
One of the people that I really enjoy talking to is a guy by the name of John Steele in St. John's, Newfoundland. And many will know Steele from the back of their cars. Steele, but that's his brother. John runs the hotel side of the family. The family's been involved in many.
Jag, is that his hotel?
That's his hotel, right? So if you were to go to the Jag Hotel in St. John's, Newfoundland, and I encourage you to do so.
It's a boutique hotel.
It's a boutique hotel, but it's such a unique experience where John's personality truly comes through in every step that you make in that hotel. He's a big music fan, and the hotel is all rock and roll music themed. He has a bar or a speakeasy on the 8th floor of the hotel, and I want to tell you this: you would be hard pressed to find a place like this anywhere else in Canada. I mean, this is like being in downtown Manhattan, right there in St. John's on the end of Gower Street, or at the end of
probably overlooking the harbor, is it?
Actually, the bar itself is not overlooking the most spectacular view in St. John's, interestingly enough.
Okay.
But when you walk in there, you don't need to look out the windows.
Okay.
All you need to do is just look around. And what he's built there is so overwhelming to your senses in terms of the colors, and everything has been so well put together. And it's just, to me, that's a guy, he didn't have to build a hotel like that in
He probably
St.
came from
John's.
enough money, he didn't have to do anything, I
He
presume.
didn't have to do anything, right? But he felt the city of St. John's needed something unique and special like that.
Yeah.
And he put in a 1,500 person sort of a concert hall in there,
Right.
where he's bringing in great acts to play. And I mean, there's just so much. And to me, that is the true sense of an entrepreneur, right? He's just adding to the community, adding to this desire to build. And quite honestly, I mean, who would have thought that something like this could survive
In St. John.
in St. John's, surrounded by all the big hotel chains, right? I mean, I'm literally surrounded by all the big hotel chains, but he put it up, and I want to tell you, what an experience. Yeah.
We were over there this summer for the Canada Games.
Yeah.
Spent a couple of weeks, and many of the venues I think were in his facility.
So there you go.
So it was a well-used asset
Yeah.
to support Canada's biggest youth game activity. So
Yeah, so I love that kind of conversation, you know. And another guy that I've done some work with in the past, and a friend, is a guy by the name of Fred George. I don't want to name drop on the show here, but Fred lives over in Halifax, and if you're not in the mining business, you probably wouldn't know Fred George. But I mean, Fred is another one of those entrepreneurs that is just so driven by building and creating, and much like Elon Musk, right?
well, I guess back to your original point, how do we encourage youth today in the workforce that may be displaced from what their career path, their parents, chosen career path for them might be, because AI is going to disrupt it.
Yep.
So how do they become self-reliant and adapt in this environment, get familiar with the tools, maybe do compelling things from DEI, because the world is flat, and there's no reason, if you can do it from St. John, Newfoundland, you're one step closer to the major markets in PEI, and I think that's the spirit that needs to be harvested. And I didn't see that necessarily on the agenda as a talking point, but it probably happens at a degree below the attendees who are there, maybe for business persons.
You got to. I mean, I think this conversation starts in schools, right? And it's they need to be encouraged to try things, to do things. And I'm sure they are, but I think it needs to be more than that. I think they really need to inject an entrepreneurial spirit into people. I mean, that to me is going to be the success of our country. If we can drive that spirit of innovation coupled with the entrepreneurial drive to get things done. I think too often in our country, I've heard the expression used often, we have innovation theater, right?
Okay.
Where we have a lot of talk around innovation, a lot of talk about innovation, but we fail the next part, which is the execution part. Sometimes we get in our own way on the execution piece. Sometimes the government gets in our way too on the execution piece. They fuel the innovation conversation.
Can't remove themselves from the exercise.
But struggle getting themselves out of the conversation in the right time. And I think that comes back to failure, right? Because they're sort of tasked with the government purse, and they want to make sure that they're investing in the right people. But sometimes that's almost like they're trying to pick winners, right? And I'm more inclined to say, look, let's get the money that you're going to spend on the table and be very comfortable with the failures. In fact,
encourage the failures.
And maybe encourage the failures and sort of to learn how to make things better. And so, to me, that's sort of the...
But if you're in government and you're measured on your failures, you're not going to take risk.
No.
I think that's the problem. The people who are trying to induce the economy to grow are risk adverse.
Yeah.
And of course they pick winners, but they want to pick the ones that probably continue to fuel the ones that have done well,
Right.
as opposed to take the risk, which might reflect poorly back on the bureaucrat.
Yeah. And then you need, I also think that, and I don't like to pin all the challenges on government, because it's not. The government doesn't know all the sort of cards or the bad cards in this particular thing. I think that, industry, when industry does well, it's on them to also sort of spark this sort of next generation. I see that happening, quite honestly, quite effectively in the defense sector.
Okay.
So I really do see that happening, where the bigger defense players are seizing the opportunity to grow that next generation of innovators and executors of their plans. So I see that playing out, and it's working very well. And that's sort of, there is government
Inducement.
There's government work in the background, but it's different. It's tailored differently. It's meant to encourage industry to grow that,
Yeah.
and then it works very well because industry knows when to get out of the way.
So it's interesting, I can bring this back to the conversation that was happening this morning at the PEI Business Summit. Andrew Coyne actually spoke about the defense investment. I don't know if it was a question. And he spoke very positively about it because it's generational. But he said, which is an interesting perspective we haven't talked about before, if you're channeling funds into defense, which has been neglected for many years, and he acknowledged we do need to spend money on defense, it limits the funds that can be put to other areas. So we've got a finite basket of capital. Of course, we have to put some in defense, and we should have been doing that in a measured way over a longer period. But by removing it from the purse, you don't get to put it into productive things like, supporting a manufacturer to increase productivity, or, it does. There probably is a consequence to focusing too much attention on a singular sector.
I couldn't disagree more on that particular point with Andrew Coyne. I think that it's through the defense spending that we can grow those other sectors.
Well,
So
you've talked about that. If your
Right.
perspective is narrow, yes, I see it. But yes, give examples because you've done that before. Everybody can be a defense sector contributor.
100%, right?
Critical.
And that's why they use terms like dual use technology. And now people, they throw that around freely in the defense world, but not many people quite understand what that means outside of the defense world. So if you have a technology, if you have a service, if you have a product that you've got great success in one area, there's probably an application for that in defense, and vice versa.
Right.
So if you've got something that's working extremely well in defense, there's probably an application for that in another sector.
And that's a creativity that probably is absent in the conversation because all you hear about is a great investment in defense. If you're not in the defense industry, you're kind of missing the boat.
Yeah.
You have to be more adaptable.
This has to be porous. Like, these sectors need to be much more porous than they are now. These stovepipes have to be broken down, and you can start to see some of these things happening now, whether it's the mining sector sort of seeing opportunity in the defense spending, and the defense companies seeing opportunity in what they're mining, right? So you can start to see that's a natural connection. I mean, the bio sector here in Prince Edward Island, there is so much application for what it is that they're doing in defense that they would be, it wouldn't be smart to look away from this right now.
Well, hopefully somebody is looking or encouraging, and
Yeah.
that's the opportunity for the bureaucrats to force their consideration of these.
Right.
Chase the money.
Yeah. Well, chase the money is one way to look at it, and that's that's an expression that's sort of used. But I would say it's more than that. It's finding the connection points, and quite honestly, they on both sides of the equation. So we'll use healthcare as an example. That healthcare conversation is churning, and it's important, and it spreads across the entire nation. But it's very isolated from the defense conversation, right? And the folks in the defense sector, they don't know what they don't know. about the healthcare sector. And the people in the healthcare sector, they don't know what they don't know about the defense sector. So, of course, these two little objects are circling around each other and they never merge, right? It's the collision point that we need to work on.
Right.
That's what we need to work on.
Forcing the collision.
Yeah.
On that vein, let's force the collision for people that are watching us. And reminder again that this is an interactive call-in program. We do it daily at noontime. You can either post comments on Facebook Live if you're watching there, or we encourage you to call. The number to call in, we'd love to have calls. We tend to get a couple of episodes. This is our second week. The number is 902-500-2464. So if you're watching, you have something to say on any subject, let us know, and we'd love to discuss it and give you the opportunity to pose it.
Yeah. So, to me, it's, I find that we need to sort of force that collision. Industry needs to be in the conversation, government needs to be, academia, to me, is sort of a place where the collision can happen. They can foster the collision in these sort of sectors, but they need to step up to it as well.
So here's a question for you. Academia, important in the triumvirate of the three elements you described. Academia is under some assault too, because our population is shrinking. Post-secondary institutions have lost access to an important foreign student base that funds programs and allows programs to prosper. Our academic institutions shrinking to the point that they might lose that ability to be a participant in that ecosystem.
Well, I don't see much shrinkage in academia at the moment in Canada. I mean, the programs are shrinking, right?
And the student base is shrinking.
The student base is shrinking for sure.
So their funds will shrink. Many of them can't have deficits, so the unions won't lay people off, so they've got to just continually cut.
Yeah.
That's the cycle that we...
I think they need to be, I think their opportunity, if I were to say, is in their adaptability. They now need to lead the conversation in adaptability. And if they can prove that they are adaptable, if they can find the synergies in what they do with other areas, I think that's important. It's for too often it was more like, it's really what we want to do, what we want to study, what we want to research. It can't be that way.
Industry has to drive it.
Well, industry, drive it is one way to describe it. More like it needs to be in the conversation. There needs to be a collaboration between them. There'll be academics, and I hope they do call in, say, well, that flies against academic freedom. We can't be led by industry, can't be told what to do, right? I understand all of that, and I appreciate all of that. I really do. I have many friends.
I have an undergraduate degree in humanities.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm not sure how that fits in, but
yeah. Well, okay. You threw me off.
I know. There are segments of the academic institutions that are connected closer to industry.
Yeah.
My history degree, it's knowledge for the sake of knowledge, as many humanities are. That probably doesn't fit quite into the equation, but to drive universities or post-secondary institutions forward, there does need to be some influence of industry. There does need to be money from government. So.
There does, and it can't just be focused on getting research grants and stuff like that where industry's involved, and they can use the industry money to go after more industry money to do the research they want to do. That's not the best method. They need to celebrate their adaptability. They need to sort of look at, how do I remain incredibly relevant in the conversation, but if not for the benefit of the professors, for the benefit of the students. They're the ones that need, this is what this is all about, right? Is sort of how do we create that next generation of the workforce? Right. And so they need to be in a more robust conversation that's more sort of, and it's not all about applied, right? Because as you say, you have a degree in humanities. It's probably because of that degree you think like you think now, and that you're a successful entrepreneur, right? It's because of those skills that you can look at things reasonably and sort of walk through these things, right? You know what I mean?
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, I think it does just allow you to think differently. It gives you exposure to different literary sort of considerations, but, let's drill it down a little bit just to bring this down to the basic island issue. Young people that want to attend a program. St. Allan College, and because of, let's call it cuts, because it is cuts ultimately. Maybe it's been driven by a declining student ratio, but there's not as much funding. So how does a student who wants to get an education in a practical skill, and they can't? And these are the kind of things that we'd like to hear from Islanders on, and how these changes affect things at the personal level.
100%. I mean, there's many people. I do a lot of work in the college system. I've had a lot of conversations across the country at the college level, and it all comes down to a conversation at the kitchen table. It always stems back to people sitting around the kitchen table somewhere in this country, talking to son or daughter, or even mom and dad in a career transition, talking about sort of the next stage of their journey, right? And how do they find themselves in our colleges and our academic institutions, both public and private? How do they position themselves and find them? How do those colleges get into that kitchen table conversation, right? How do they showcase how do they connect?
Yeah.
They're struggling to connect, right? I find, and again, I do a lot of this work, it's meant to help the colleges tell their stories, right? And it's used for marketing. It's used for recruiting and retention. And it's used to hire staff. It's used to engage employers that might hire their students that are graduating. But it all stems down from the actual genuine conversation of what people are thinking and what they're doing, what they want to do for their next part of their journey. It's got to be drilled down into the high school. I mean, when you and I went through high school, I'm assuming you finished high school. When you and I went through high school,
it was the best 8 years of my life.
Best 8 years of your life, yeah. Anyway, when you and I finished high school, there was a path, and that path was university, right? Well, that's not the conversation anymore.
And it shouldn't be, because not everybody is geared toward that
100%.
academics. And Allan College and other vocational schools are great.
I remember doing, and so if you travel through India and places like that, many of those countries, their kids are raised, they're going to be one of three things.
And it's decided very early for them.
Doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? And that's it. Well, my first trip to India, I remember driving into Delhi, and the old Delhi I was driving into. And I glanced up and I looked at a telephone pole, and I had never seen so many wires going in at one pole. I mean, it was
many emerging places. It was like a danger, and people tap into those to access electricity at the risk of blowing their arms off.
So you've seen what I'm talking about, right? And many people would have seen this. And I knew then and there, this country does not need more electrical engineers. This country needs electricians, right?
Yeah.
But nobody's sitting around the kitchen table saying you should be an electrician.
Yeah.
If you're, right?
But that's, even if you just want to tap into that safely to get you access to power.
But you take my point, right? And so we're not alone in this conversation, but I think that's shifting in Canada. Quite honestly, people are understanding that the colleges play a very vital part in our community, in our society. And many cases, people will come out now with a degree and go right into college to get a skill set that they can use, right?
Yeah.
So they'll take that thinking from the university, bring it into a college, and result in a job out the other end. Anyway, it's all very fascinating stuff, but it plays right into those workforce challenges. And the end user, of course, is those industries, government. We all need skilled people in the conversation, but academia, to me, plays a vital role, and I sometimes find they're not finding their place.
Academia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably deserves a rethink on what the role of academia is in
how it's funded, why it's funded in that way.
Who they're serving.
Yeah.
They're not self-serving, they wouldn't know that they're creating the workforce of the future or the citizens of the future. And it being a little bit more, let's take it back. The traditional path of academia is just knowledge for the sake of knowledge.
Right.
But applying that in some coherent way to the economy, if it's not being revisited, it probably should be.
I wasn't so long ago, in a conversation with one of the professors out at the climate change lab, and sort of an expert in precision agriculture. And
I think I know who you're referring
who I'm
to.
talking to. Of course, we're talking about Ada Zaz Farouk, and Ada Zaz, incredible precision ag engineer.
We should have him on.
We should have Ada Zaz on, but could not see the connection between what he was doing and what was happening in the defense sector. Well, there was such a natural connection between growing food and what's happening in defense. I mean, there's such a natural connection, right? But again, just because of the silos, and I could go into any defense conversation and I can say, tell me what you know about precision agriculture and the Canadian climate change. They would know nothing.
Well, so that's in these kinetic wars where we're relying on drone, technology. So whether it's drones or robotics or unmanned vehicles, is agriculture still a part of? Because you're not fueling an army to invade. Well, maybe that's going to happen. We'll know in a few hours today, but
you might not be fueling an army, but there's a society at the other end that is going to need to be fed, and that's all part of the whole defense spectrum, right? It's not just
the soldiers,
and it's not just war.
Right.
It's the whole
I think that's
spectrum, right?
Part, yeah.
And that's the conversation we all need to be in. It's from peace to war to after, and all of that. There's a spectrum here, and we see it playing out all around the world at different phases, right? At different phases. Some of it's hot and burning in one mode, like we're seeing every day in the news, but there's other things happening where all that hot burning issues are over.
But there's a main
people are trying to survive, trying to get back on their feet. How does all that happen? Houses need to be built. Food needs to be grown. Energy needs to be sorted out. All of those things. You talk drones, right? So can't help but thinking, here we are, we have an incredible facility out in Slemon Park. I mean, drone central. I don't understand why we're not diving deeper into the drone conversation right here in Prince Edward Island.
Well, it's a more, I think this war in particular, and probably the conflict in Ukraine and Russia, drone warfare is now a significant part of the theater.
Well, of course, because you don't have to consume
no risk of
all kind of resources to go rescue somebody, like we just saw happen, right?
And the costs are much less to put a drone up, and so we'll do one more call out for listeners. If you'd like to connect, I encourage you to do so. Best way is either through Facebook Live, send a comment in. We're happy to give you the opportunity to have your comments heard, or if you'd like to call in, the number again is 902-500-2464.
Right. Hope somebody calls in. Do we have any comments coming in there?
We're waiting for feedback, so we have a technical team, and I want to thank Zach and Sylvia who are kind of monitoring things and helping get the infrastructure set up. They'll let us know. We're too busy talking to monitor the feed, but those are two methods that we encourage you to connect with us. We'd love to hear from Islanders, and that's the purpose. As you mentioned earlier on, Alan, this is kind of an experiment that takes a little bit to kind of be fulfilled. And we know from the people who viewed this on different formats. You can catch us either on Facebook, on YouTube, or on our website, theislanddo.com. We are pretty impressed with the number of people who have watched either live or subsequently the broadcast as they're presented. And we want the engagement of Islanders. That's how this will flourish. And so that the hundreds and hundreds of people that are engaging communicate, be part of the conversation.
Hot topic that is always on Islanders' minds of late, and that is sort of land usage and influence by sort of maybe foreign governments in terms of land here on PEI. You have thoughts on that?
Who wouldn't want to own part of PEI?
Right.
And we have a regulator who's trying to manage the volume, and there are restrictions on the amount of land that can be purchased by individuals or corporations.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly in the agricultural sector, there's large corporations that would like to control more of our agricultural landscape. That's preserved and protected and I believe managed by the regulator, which is IRAC. A subject of some controversy is what's happening, or perception of what's happening down east, and the loss of available agricultural land to persons outside PI that might not use it the same way. There's a couple of perspectives on that. There's a farmer who, is looking for an exit. So whether you've got coastal farmland somewhere in PEI that is more valuable as development land for cottage owners, or you've got a succession issue, and there's not a lot of opportunities to sell agricultural land if your family don't have a use for it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some compounding dynamics on either side of the equation, and on the other side, you have institutions, organizations, individuals that want that land and are willing to take it over and support it and manage it. So very hot subject presently. Yeah. And not just the eastern end. I think that subject is universal across our small sandbars.
Yeah. Misunderstood to it, and I think there's a lot of void. There's a void being created, and there's not a lot of information in that void. I think we talked about this before, is being filled, and it's hard to know what's accurate and what's not.
Well, so there's an opportunity for someone to call in,
yeah.
give us your perspective, or better yet, if you've got an opinion or join us.
Yeah,
we'll afford you the time to sort of share your what you know, which is probably more than what you and I know.
Right.
And this is the kind of information that we want to engage Islanders into the conversation.
It would be tremendously complicated. To your point, let's say that you had a large sort of swath of land, and it was shoreline, and many you see when we drive around Incredible Island, how many of those that actually exist, where the farm runs right down to the beachhead, it would be very difficult if you couldn't sell that. Or
you're restricted, and that would be your only asset you've worked your whole life for. It could be retirement. Like many people, unless you work in the public service, you probably don't have a retirement vehicle.
Yeah.
So this is the retirement fund. To be restricted from exercising that asset, it gets to government over intervention.
Boy, does it ever, eh? Can you imagine? I'm not in that position, but can you imagine if that were the case, that you had that, and
that's your livelihood.
That's that's your exit strategy. And I get that succession planning and farming is complicated and stuff like that, and but that's a whole other topic. I mean, that we could talk about.
Well, we have all week, so we can queue up.
It would be great to get somebody like Blois to call in here and talk about succession planning.
And Blois
Thompson,
the agricultural minister.
Exactly. It'd be great to get Blois to call in and talk about just that one topic.
Does he have your number? Could he call? He doesn't have mine, so.
You've got the number, read it out.
The number is 902-500-2464. And Minister Thompson's listening.
Yeah.
I don't need to call in.
It'd be great
Don't talk to me.
We could sit right in the middle here and talk to both of us.
That would be great.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I mean, I would find that a very sort of hard pill to swallow if you had this asset and you were being restricted. It's, what's the solution there?
And is there too much government intervention when you're restricted from exercising the retirement strategy? Interestingly, both Matt McFarland and Robert Mitchell on the Exchange podcast, that subject did come up.
Okay.
And I think politicians are acutely aware of the sensitivities and the concerns, and we won't reveal what happened, but you can certainly tune in to those podcasts on the Island Dale. It's
a fascinating conversation because it's very difficult to explain that to people that don't live on Prince Edward Island.
Well, and it almost seems like it is a regulated market in that case, and it's only regulated for large swaths of land, the access. Now, if you're from outside of PEI, if you're resident, is not in PEI, you pay an out-of-province property tax, which is punitive.
But it's not that large.
It's not, and if you're buying land as a second or third home, it's probably irrelevant.
Yeah.
But it is an additional revenue source that the provincial treasury gets access to.
But the restriction on the land it's not, the land is, I think it's over 5 acres, right?
It's a good question. It's not very much. Probably is 5 acres.
I think it's over 5, and I think if it's, I could be wrong on this number, but somewhere around 200 feet of shoreline. So if either one of those are triggered, then it needs to go to Iraq.
Right. Could die a slow death waiting for adjudication.
Well, that's a pretty complicated scenario to put somebody in. If they wanted to chunk off a piece of land, as you say, is part of their retirement, and that's valuable land,
Sure.
right? And they're being
And it's
held
probably
out.
not good farmland. If it's on the shoreline, it's probably not
Yeah.
even good agrarian.
Yeah, so, but my point is, like, I would be quite frustrated if I wanted to sell that and I had a buyer,
Yeah.
but the buyer was from Ontario or wherever, and they were being denied the purchase of
Or
that.
if they had a 4.7 acres
Yeah,
and couldn't proceed.
yeah,
This is where regulation and political oversight complicate
yeah.
matters.
But equally, I also see like the desire, you don't want to sell it all off either, right?
Once it's gone, it's gone. We don't make more land.
Right,
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah, it's almost like the government, if they're gonna not let you sell it, well, then maybe they should be in the position to buy up a little bit, right?
Well, that's another, I mean, I think less intervention and oversight is probably appropriate, but yeah, I mean, and we talked about that as well. There used to be a program, maybe called farm banking or land banking, where the government would acquire some of those assets. The price might be different as farmland
Right,
than if you're doing as development or industrial land. So,
yeah.
but that does preserve and protect.
You may know this more than I, but how much crown land is there on Prince Edward Island?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, there'd be a lot of woodlots.
Yeah,
I would presume just the infrastructure that the government owns between schools and hospitals and government buildings. And don't forget, we also have another important part in this, which is First Nations.
right,
And when you start talking about crown lands, you know, there's conversation on, you know, what is the ownership of that land, and,
right.
and that, you know, is another dynamic to an already complicated.
Complicated, tricky, because in Newfoundland, there's a lot of crown land.
Yes.
Right, and this is where sometimes conversation industry, if they want to put up a wind farm or something
resource.
like that, it becomes very complicated to access the land. It gets
Right.
caught up in the government. So that's sort of the other extreme where it gets caught up in the bureaucracy where we don't want to let you use that land, or not necessarily, but there's a process they need to go through that can sometimes be too lengthy for industry to tolerate.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is usually the case when industry tries to work with government on almost any subject. But back to today's agenda, this was an event that was sponsored by Junior Achievement, who do great work. In fact, one of the young people who introduced Andrew Coyne was Tyson Wilson, and Tyson was also on the Exchange podcast. So our fingerprints were widely on display.
Unbelievable, you're everywhere.
It's good, and very in tune young man who was articulate and did a great job.
Yeah.
But the benefits that Junior Achievement, I'm a former Junior Achiever. I was the first one to go through the full Junior Achievement program when it was introduced to BEI. And it is a great program. So to see the community come out and support an event like today's.
What's the program entail? What's it about?
Junior Achievement really introduces young people to the concept of entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And if you don't have exposure to it through family or whatever other avenue you might have exposure to, this is great. It's better than watching Succession on HBO and thinking you're going to go that route. But it shows you at a very rudimentary level how you create a product, how you market it, how you price it, how you sell it, how you manage the finances.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's quite a rich and great program.
How do you get accepted in, and at what ages?
I think
or what
it's
other
pretty,
parameters?
so when it started, there's one program for PEI, and anybody who wanted to participate it was in Charlottetown, and I was living outside of Charlottetown. I think today pretty much every high school has a facility that can help promote or an access point to participate in the program. Maybe we should have someone from Junior Achievement on. But then there's other programs that are ancillary, like Business Basics, which introduces very, early fundamental concepts to younger ages, I think in junior high school.
Right.
And the business that they would do, and I've taught that program, you actually want to sell a pen. So you get one of these big pens with sort of retractable sort of end. You get all the parts, you've got to assemble them, come up with a price,
Yeah.
and then sell it. It's fictitious, so you don't actually sell it, but you realize the process of manufacturing, pricing, and going to market and selling.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great program.
Can you sell me that pen?
There's what's that from? What do I know? Wolf of Wall Street.
That's right.
That's great. Also a good entrepreneurial
That's
program.
exactly right.
Yeah.
There you go. So there's a couple of ways to do things. Could you sign that there for me? Because that could come in handy someday. this
I
year.
can't sign unless I charge you for that.
And what's that?
I can't sign unless I charge you.
Because I'm hoping you'll ask for this pen. At the end of the day, no, I think that's great. I mean, I think that's a great program. And it sounds like that's kind of full circle about what we were talking about here today, right? I think when you introduce things like that at that level to people, that's what results in what we're seeing happening in space now.
And it's an ecosystem.
Right.
So just start from building a pen to then inspiring somebody to build a component of a rocket ship, maybe the defense contracting.
Yeah.
And then we're putting people on Mars, as Elon Musk would like to do someday.
Yeah. You know, I'm also fascinated about, it's one thing to witness what we're witnessing now, but the conversation around getting people to Mars is just a whole other
risk
level too. I mean, the distance, I don't know if many people...
You're not coming back.
Yeah. I don't
it's
know.
a one-way trip.
Yeah, this is, what is it? It takes 10 days to get to the other side of the moon. And I think it's 3 years to get to Mars.
And technologies change, right? So if they could come up with a nuclear or some other technology that can kind of accelerate you faster. But these are the things that occupy inspirational leaders' minds like Elon Musk. And like him or don't, he's been, singly focused on that opportunity. He's building, again, if it's, what was in Terminator Skynet? And he's building an entire ecosystem of robots. In fact, he's canceled, and you'd be familiar with the Tesla Model S and X, he's canceled those products to make room for production of robots. So, when you think it's not achievable in our lifetime, it's not inconceivable he couldn't send a team of robots to develop the habitat and the infrastructure that's required for a human to probably survive, but you're not coming back. Yeah. So if you're one of those people that signed up for a mission, it's a one-way ticket.
I often use... And Elon Musk got a little controversial over the last couple of years, but there's little doubt about it. He's one of the greatest thinkers of our time.
Yeah.
There's little doubt about that. But I will say this, that I often refer to sort of his desire to have rockets return to Earth so they can be reusable. And I always reflect on when that first happened, and you watch a rocket take off, boost a ship into space, and then it returns to the exact location that it took off from. And two of them came down together at once. And so then people say, this healthcare problem can't be solved. If we can make a rocket land back, I'm sure we can figure this out, right?
Well, there's another subject that we'll have to save for another day. Right. And it'd be great to have someone from the healthcare sector.
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
Or people who've been affected by the changes in healthcare.
Right.
I know I've lost my family physician. And you can hear from my voice, this is not a natural voice. This is a consequence of some challenges. So without having the benefit of being followed as you'd expect in a modern society in Canada, and I'm not alone. 40,000 plus people also not able to access primary care physicians directly. Subject for another day.
We'll be back again tomorrow. Maybe give them the number again, and we'll take it from there.
Alan, pleasure again. Thank you, Allan Dale, for joining as co-host of the live interactive call-in program. Blake Doyle, and you're listening on the Island Do. The ways to connect for another day, either call us, 902-500-2464. That phone line is open during the broadcast and shut down right after. You can certainly send us notes, any comments through the messaging app or through our website. And I want to thank you again for hosting the second week. It's been a success.
My pleasure.
You're going to keep coming back?
I keep coming back till you send me away.
Okay, lots of subjects to cover tomorrow, so I hope you tune back in. And thanks again for being part of our broadcast today.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.